Good evening, friends. Make yourselves comfortable. Dim the lights if you like, pull a blanket over yourself, and let go, for a while, of everything that followed you through the day. Tonight, we are going on a peaceful journey across our strange and beautiful planet. We will talk about things happening somewhere far away at this very moment, in the deep oceans, ancient forests, among distant stars, beside unusual animals, and even inside our own bodies. There is nothing you need to remember, no hidden meanings, no tasks. Just listen and imagine. Perhaps, as you drift off to sleep, an albatross will be flying somewhere over the ocean. Leaves will rustle softly in the jungle, and millions of kilometers from Earth, a new star will flare into life. When you stop to think about it, the world is far more interesting than it seems. So, shall we begin? The Earth we live on. It seems enormous, but beside certain stars, it is only a tiny sphere, almost like a toy. Every second, Earth spins on its axis at more than 400 meters per second, and we do not feel it at all. Strange, isn't it? The equator is about 40,000 kilometers long. The deepest point on the planet lies in the Mariana Trench. If Mount Everest were lowered into it, more than a kilometer of water would still remain above its summit. The depth there is quite literally beyond anything human. Earth, by the way, is not a perfect sphere. It is slightly flattened at the poles. About 100 tons of cosmic dust falls onto our planet every day, but almost all of it is so fine that we simply never notice. The Sahara was once green. It was not a sea of sand, but a land of lakes, vegetation, and animals. Hippos once lived where dunes now stretch. Around 70% of Earth's surface is covered by water, yet only a very small amount of it is fresh water suitable for drinking. Almost all the planet's ice is concentrated in Antarctica. If it melts, global sea levels will rise considerably. And that no longer sounds like some distant abstraction. Temperatures above 56 degrees Celsius have been recorded on Earth. At the other extreme, temperatures have fallen below -89. Thunderstorms are happening somewhere on the planet all the time. At any given second, hundreds of lightning bolts are flashing across Earth. Some mountains are still growing, others are slowly being worn away by wind and rain. Giant tectonic plates are moving beneath our feet, very slowly, but they are the forces that build mountain ranges and trigger earthquakes. Lake Baikal holds around 20% of all the liquid fresh water on Earth, and it is about 25 million years old, making it one of the most ancient lakes on the planet. Those numbers are a little unsettling, really. Some areas of the ocean floor have been studied less thoroughly than the surface of the moon, and scientists are still discovering new forms of life in the deepest places on Earth. Long ago, all the continents formed a single whole, one supercontinent called Pangaea. Then it broke apart and drifted away, eventually creating the world map we know today. And this is only the beginning. The oceans are Earth's largest and, honestly, most mysterious realm. Seen from space, our planet looks blue because of them. The oceans cover almost everything that first catches the eye. The average depth of the world's oceans is almost 4 kilometers. Sunlight reaches only the upper layers of the water. Below them begins a world of eternal darkness. At depths greater than 1,000 meters, there are no sunrises or sunsets, only absolute night. Some deep-sea fish produce their own light. This is called bioluminescence. They can use it to communicate, hunt, and hide. Useful, and a little eerie. The largest animal on Earth lives in the ocean, the blue whale. Its heart is roughly the size of a small car. Sound can travel for thousands of kilometers through the ocean. Whales take advantage of this, sending signals across vast underwater distances. The pressure in the deep is so great that most land creatures simply could not withstand it. But for deep-sea inhabitants, it is an ordinary environment. It is home. There are more underwater volcanoes in the oceans than there are volcanoes on land. and many of them are active. Ocean currents act like a giant heating system for the planet. They carry warmth between continents. Without them, Earth's climate would be entirely different. In some places, there are even rivers beneath the sea. Yes, it sounds strange, but they really do form because of differences in water density. Some jellyfish barely age. Under certain conditions, they can return to earlier stages of development, almost as though they are winding their lives backward. The longest mountain system in the world is also hidden beneath the water. It stretches across many oceans. If we could see it in its entirety, the sight would be, to put it mildly, magnificent. Many creatures of the deep look as if they were designed for somewhere other than Earth. Transparent heads, enormous teeth, glowing eyes. The ocean still keeps its distance from us, and perhaps its most astonishing discoveries are still waiting ahead. The animals of the world are our remarkable neighbors on this planet. Life on Earth is so diverse that even scientists do not know exactly how many species exist. Thousands of new ones are discovered each year: insects, fish, fungi, and many more. Some animals are so tiny that they are difficult to see even under magnification. Others are nearly the size of a small house. The largest land animal is the African elephant. An adult male can weigh more than 6 tons. Elephants have extraordinary memories. They remember routes to waterholes for years, and they recognize one another even after a long separation. Octopuses have 3 hearts. 2 serve the gills, while 1 pumps blood through the rest of the body, and their blood is blue because of the substance that carries oxygen through it. Giraffes look especially unusual because of their long necks, but they have the same number of neck vertebrae as humans, 7. That, honestly, never stops being surprising. Sloths spend almost their entire lives in trees. They move so slowly that algae sometimes grow on their fur. Polar bears can smell prey from many kilometers away, even when it is hidden beneath a thick layer of snow. Penguins cannot fly, but they are superb swimmers. Some species move so quickly underwater that plenty of people in boats could only envy them. Kangaroos cannot move backward. That is why Australians regard them as a symbol of moving forward. Ants have lived on Earth for more than 100 million years. They appeared during the age of the dinosaurs, and if you added up the weight of all the ants on the planet, the result would be remarkably large. Bees can tell one another where flowers are located. To do this, they perform a special dance, one of the most unusual languages in nature. Hummingbirds are the only birds capable of flying backward. Their wings beat dozens of times each second. Crocodiles have changed very little over millions of years. That is why they are called living fossils. Some turtles live for more than a century. In practical terms, they can outlive several human generations. Bats find their way through darkness using echolocation. They make sounds and interpret the echoes that return, almost like radar, except alive. Wolves can travel enormous distances. In a single day, a pack may cover dozens of kilometers. Dolphins have something like names. Each has its own distinctive whistle by which the others recognize it. Crows are astonishing creatures. They solve complex problems and know how to use simple tools. Koalas sleep for up to 20 hours a day. In a way, they are experts in the art of rest. The cheetah remains the fastest land animal. Over a short distance, it can reach speeds of more than 100 kilometers per hour. Some frogs freeze in winter and, quite literally, come back to life in spring. Their bodies temporarily bring almost all vital processes to a halt. Sea otters sleep on the water, and to keep the current from carrying them apart, they sometimes hold one another's paws. Some sharks appeared before the dinosaurs. They survived several mass extinctions, a stubborn, ancient line of life. There are also fish that can change sex during their lifetime. It is one way of adapting to their environment. Even the most ordinary-looking animals often conceal abilities we rarely stop to consider. And now, let us step into the world of birds, creatures that mastered the sky long before airplanes existed. Birds are the true masters of the air. They live on almost every continent. In deserts, in the tundra, high in the mountains. Every place has its own life and its own rules. The smallest bird on Earth is the bee hummingbird. It measures less than 6 centimeters. The largest is the ostrich, which can grow taller than 2.5 meters. It cannot fly, but it can certainly run. Some albatrosses remain over the ocean for years and barely ever land. They simply catch the air currents and follow their endless routes. The Arctic tern is the true record holder. Over its lifetime, it flies a distance comparable to a journey to the moon and back. Owls can turn their heads almost 270 degrees, an indispensable ability for hunting at night. Flamingos, by the way, are not born pink. Their color develops later because of their diet. Woodpeckers strike trees dozens of times per second, yet somehow their brains remain unharmed. It is a very strange but impressive piece of natural engineering. Some parrots memorize hundreds of words. A few can even grasp the meaning of simple phrases. Eagles can spot prey from several kilometers away. Penguins dive deeper than 500 meters, an extraordinary achievement for a bird. Swifts can spend almost their entire lives in the air. There is evidence that they even sleep while flying. Ducks stay nearly dry thanks to the oily coating on their feathers. Sparrows, which we see every day, have spread across almost the entire world and live very comfortably beside humans. Some birds know how to use tools, such as sticks for reaching food. Then there are cassowaries. They may look almost comical at times, but they are among the most dangerous birds on the planet and can cause very serious injuries. Peacocks display their famous tails to attract attention, although the fan is not truly a tail at all. It is made of specially elongated feathers. Some eagles build enormous nests weighing several tons and use them for decades. Birds do a great deal for the planet. They spread seeds, help forests grow, and connect entire ecosystems. During migration, millions of birds cross oceans, mountains, and deserts before returning home. Without maps, without navigation systems, scientists are still working out exactly how they do it. And now, let us go higher, to the place where space begins. Space is a story without an ending, unfolding directly above our heads. As you read this, a vastness hangs above you whose scale makes the mind begin to stall. Even traveling at the speed of a modern spacecraft, reaching the nearest stars would take thousands of years. And even then, it is hard to know whether we would have the patience to truly comprehend it. At night, we see only a tiny fragment of the universe. The light from many stars takes years to reach us. So when you look at the sky, you are looking into the past. And yes, some of those bright points may no longer exist. Their light is simply still on its way. The sun is a medium-sized star. Some stars are vastly larger, so large that if one were placed at the center of our solar system, it could swallow the orbits of several planets. Sunlight takes around 8 minutes to reach Earth, so we always see the sun with a slight delay. The moon is gradually moving away from Earth by a few centimeters each year. It seems insignificant. Yet over long periods, the appearance of the sky changes. There is no wind, rain, rivers, or oceans on the moon, so astronauts' footprints may remain there for a very long time. Mars is home to the tallest volcanoes in the solar system. Some are several times higher than Everest. On Venus, a day is longer than a year. The planet rotates so slowly on its axis that it completes an orbit around the Sun before finishing a single turn. Jupiter is so enormous that more than 1,000 Earths could fit inside it, although the planet itself is made mostly of gas. Saturn's rings are formed from billions of pieces of ice and rock. Some are as small as grains of sand. Others are the size of a house. Uranus rotates almost completely on its side. It appears that something struck it very hard in the distant past. On Neptune, winds blow faster than the speed of sound. And farther out, things become even more interesting. There are planets where it rains glass. Others have surfaces so hot that metal melts. Some worlds are covered by one continuous ocean. We already know of thousands of exoplanets, planets beyond our solar system, and new ones are found every year. Perhaps somewhere among them is something like Earth. Perhaps. The nearest star beyond the Sun is more than 4 light-years away, and a light-year is the distance light travels in 1 year. This is usually where the imagination begins to give up. Black holes are another story altogether. Their gravity is so powerful that not even light can escape. Supermassive black holes seem to sit at the centers of most galaxies, including ours. Our galaxy is called the Milky Way, and it contains hundreds of billions of stars. There are billions of galaxies like it throughout the universe. If every person on Earth began counting 1 star per second, counting all the stars in the Milky Way would still take thousands of years. Some stars live for millions of years, others for billions. When their lives end, they may become white dwarfs, neutron stars, or black holes. Neutron stars are so dense that a teaspoon of their matter would weigh billions of tons. Supernovae, some of the most powerful events science can observe, are constantly erupting across the universe. And here is a thought that always makes you pause. The elements in our bodies were once formed inside ancient stars. We really are made of stardust. Beautiful, isn't it? Looking at the sky can make you feel very small, but there is something comforting in that too. We are part of an immense story billions of years long. While new stars are born and old worlds disappear somewhere far away, life on Earth continues in its usual rhythm. And now, back to Earth. Back to the people who lived here long before us. Ancient civilizations are not merely a distant past. They were people, much like us, really. If we could travel back several thousand years, the world would look completely different. No cars, electricity, or internet. Yet people still built cities, made art, invented systems, and tried to understand how the world worked. The Sumerians are considered one of the earliest civilizations. They lived in what is now Iraq and created one of the first writing systems. Their symbols were pressed into clay tablets. Some of those tablets have survived to this day. Just imagine that. The Egyptians built the pyramids more than 4,000 years ago, and even now not every detail of their construction is fully understood. The most famous is the Great Pyramid. For nearly 4,000 years it remained the tallest structure on Earth. The Egyptians watched the stars closely, and that knowledge helped them predict when the Nile would flood. The people of Mesopotamia used calendars, observed the sky, and recorded the movements of celestial bodies. Thousands of years ago in China, complex irrigation systems were built to grow food for millions of people. Paper, the compass, and gunpowder also appeared there, inventions that would later transform the world. The Maya built large cities in the jungles of Central America. They had an advanced understanding of astronomy, and their calendars still amaze us with their precision. In the cities of ancient Greece, philosophy, mathematics, and a new approach to knowledge began to flourish, laying foundations on which much of the later world was built. The Greeks constructed open-air theaters, some of which still stand today. The Romans created one of the largest empires of the ancient world. Their roads were built so well that some remain in use even now. Aqueducts, vast systems for carrying water, were another Roman achievement, and a few of them still function. The Inca civilization arose in Peru. Its people built cities high in the Andes, the most famous being Machu Picchu. Its ruins still make a powerful impression. The Vikings, by the way, were not only warriors, they were also excellent sailors who explored new lands long before the great age of discovery. Many ancient civilizations vanished, some because of wars, others because of drought, disease, or changes in climate. But traces remain. Coins, statues, manuscripts, and ruined cities are fragments of other lives that were once every bit as real as ours. Those people looked at the stars, too. They waited for things, dreamed of things, and tried to understand the world around them. And perhaps that is the most interesting part. Thousands of years lie between us, yet we are far more alike than we imagine. The human body is genuinely astonishing. And the funny thing is that most of the time, we do not even notice. We spend our whole lives inside our bodies. We become so accustomed to them that we hardly consider the tremendous work taking place every second. You may simply be lying down and listening to this story, but at this very moment, your heart is pumping blood. No pauses, no days off. It beats around 100,000 times a day and billions of times over a lifetime. The blood vessels in the body form an enormous network. If laid end to end, they would stretch for around 100,000 kilometers, enough to circle the Earth more than once. The human brain contains around 86 billion nerve cells, each connected to thousands of others. These connections are, in essence, where thoughts, memories, and dreams arise. Even at night, the brain does not simply rest. It processes information, sorts through impressions, and helps preserve memories. The eye can distinguish millions of shades of color, and the brain processes all of them almost instantly. The skin is the body's largest organ. It shields us from the outside world and renews itself constantly. Its outer layer is completely replaced roughly every few weeks. A person takes around 20,000 breaths each day. Usually we do not notice them at all. Inside the lungs are vast numbers of tiny air sacs. If their total surface were unfolded, it would cover an area about the size of a tennis court. Bones seem hard and unchanging, but they are not. They are constantly renewing themselves as the skeleton replaces old cells with new ones. Our bodies contain enough carbon to make thousands of pencils, and, to put it simply, an adult human contains several large containers worth of water. The liver is remarkable in its own right. It can regenerate even after serious damage, at least partially restoring its former size. Millions of new cells appear in the body every second. In that same second, millions of old ones disappear. The body is not merely alive, it is rebuilding itself all the time. The nose can distinguish an enormous number of scents. Sometimes, one unexpected smell suddenly brings back a memory that has not surfaced in years. Scientists are still studying exactly how this works. A smile engages dozens of facial muscles, although the precise number depends on the smile itself. There are more bacteria in the human body than there are people on the entire planet. That may sound alarming, but most of them are not our enemies. On the contrary, many are extremely helpful, especially for digestion. The brain consumes a great deal of energy, even though it weighs very little compared with the body as a whole. Our hearing can detect incredibly faint vibrations in the air. That is how we are able to hear very quiet sounds. Every person has a unique pattern of fingerprints, even identical twins. The tongue, by the way, also has a pattern of its own. The body does not switch off during sleep. It repairs, restores, and keeps the organs working. Sleep is not a luxury. Good health simply cannot exist without it. And while all this continues quietly inside you, we can move on to weather, clouds, and the strange, beautiful things nature creates. Weather and climate are the endless movement of air and water. Nothing here is static. Something changes every day, sometimes almost imperceptibly, and sometimes nature reveals its full force. Clouds seem light, almost weightless, yet a large storm cloud can contain hundreds of thousands of tons of water and still remain suspended in the air. Strange, when you think about it. Lightning heats the air to temperatures that can exceed the temperature at the sun's surface. After the flash, the air expands suddenly, producing thunder. It is not merely a sound, but a shock wave. At every second, thunderstorms are rumbling somewhere on Earth. Many occur over oceans where no one ever sees them. The strongest winds can destroy buildings and quite literally reshape a landscape. Hurricanes draw their energy from warm ocean water. The warmer it is, the greater the storm's chance of becoming truly powerful. Snowflakes may all seem alike, but it is almost impossible to find two that are perfectly identical. Each forms under its own unique conditions. A rainbow appears when droplets of water separate sunlight into colors. In essence, it is an enormous natural spectrum stretched across the sky. Fog is simply a cloud that has descended all the way to the ground. The driest place on the planet is the Atacama Desert. In some areas, no rain falls for years. Elsewhere, more than 10 meters of precipitation may fall in a single year. Nature seems fond of such contrasts. Hailstones can sometimes grow to the size of a small ball. At that point, they are no longer merely precipitation, but a serious danger. The aurora appears when particles from the solar wind collide with Earth's atmosphere. Green, pink, and violet light ripples across the sky. It is one of those moments when the planet seems to have decided to impress us on purpose. High in the mountains, the air is much thinner. That is why breathing there becomes noticeably more difficult. Some clouds stretch for hundreds of kilometers. They can be large enough to cover the territory of many countries. Air temperature depends on more than sunlight. It is strongly influenced by ocean currents, humidity, and the movement of air masses. And yes, the world's largest deserts are not necessarily hot. Antarctica is a desert too, only one made of ice. Sometimes heavy snow falls in places that are usually warm. Heat arrives in regions we think of as cool. Earth's climate has never truly stood still. It has changed for millions of years, with ice ages giving way to warmer periods. You look through a window and see rain, clouds, or a clear sky. It all seems perfectly ordinary. Yet behind it lies an immense system of processes spanning the whole planet. Weather connects oceans, forests, mountains, and continents into one living mechanism, and it never stops. Never. Day after day, year after year, for thousands of years. Plants are the quiet foundation of life on Earth. If they suddenly disappeared, the world we know would simply fall apart. Plants produce much of the oxygen we breathe, and they have been doing so for hundreds of millions of years. The tallest trees on the planet are redwoods. Some rise higher than a 30-story building. Individual trees can be more than 2,000 years old. They began growing long before many modern countries existed. Bamboo grows at an almost absurd speed. Some species can add nearly a meter in a single day, one of the fastest growth rates in the living world. Vast networks of roots and fungal threads lie beneath the forest floor. Through them, plants exchange nutrients and signals. This is sometimes called the forest internet. The phrase sounds dramatic, but the image is fitting. The largest living organism on Earth is neither a tree nor an animal. It is a giant underground fungal network spread across an enormous area. Some plants can hunt. The Venus flytrap, for example, catches insects in leaves that act like traps. Some water lilies have leaves strong enough to support the weight of a small child. That is how large and sturdy they can be. Tropical forests contain most of the known plant species, even though the forests themselves occupy a relatively small portion of the land. Some seeds know how to wait. They can remain dormant for decades. Then, when conditions are finally right, they suddenly sprout and begin a new life. Trees do not walk, of course, yet in a sense they still move. New generations gradually spread into places where conditions are more favorable. Plants exist almost everywhere, from deserts to the polar regions. Silently, they have stood beside the entire history of humankind, and they are here right now. As we continue through this vast, sometimes strange, but very beautiful world of facts. The countries and peoples of the world are among the most fascinating subjects on the entire planet. We all live on the same Earth, yet the world is far from uniform. Every country has its own customs, history, food, and way of seeing life. There are almost 200 nations on the planet today, and no two are entirely alike. The largest country in the world is Russia. It stretches across 11 time zones. In the East, a new day may already be beginning, while, in the West, someone is only getting ready for bed. The smallest country is Vatican City. It is so small that you can walk across it fairly quickly. More than 7,000 languages are spoken around the world. Some are used by millions of people. Others are spoken by only a few dozen. Certain languages disappear together with their last native speakers. And that, honestly, is a little sad. People greet one another differently, too. In some places, they bow. Elsewhere, they shake hands. And in some cultures, they touch noses or simply incline their heads. China is home to more people than many vast regions of the world. Yet even within a single country, cultural differences can be tremendous. Many languages and dialects are spoken in India. People from neighboring regions may use completely different languages. Japan still preserves many traditions that are hundreds of years old. They are passed down carefully, almost tenderly. In some countries, villages have stood for many centuries. People still live in almost the same places where their ancestors once lived. The world's largest urban areas are home to tens of millions of people. A number like that is difficult even to imagine. Ideas about an ordinary life differ everywhere. Something perfectly normal in one country may be astonishing in another. Some peoples have lived among snow and ice for centuries. Others have lived in hot deserts. Some built homes on stilts above the water. Others built them high in the mountains. Human beings can adapt to almost anything. Many countries celebrate festivals connected with harvests, nature, and the changing seasons. Some of these traditions are thousands of years old. The oldest cities in the world still exist. Modern people walk through streets that were laid out long before cars appeared. Many national dishes arose simply because people cooked with whatever ingredients were available nearby. Over time, those recipes became part of the culture. Some countries have several official languages. In others, people switch comfortably between several languages every day. Travel makes it especially clear how varied architecture can be, from ice houses in the north to vividly colored buildings in the tropics. Every culture contributes something to the shared story of humanity. Perhaps that is why the planet remains so interesting. The more we learn about other people, the clearer it becomes. The world is remarkably diverse, and at the same time, surprisingly similar. Mountains, deserts, and the harshest places on Earth. Looking at a map, it is easy to forget that the planet's surface is neither flat nor calm. Enormous mountain ranges stretch across some regions. Endless deserts cover others. And there are places human beings visit only very rarely. The highest mountain on Earth is Everest. Its summit rises almost 9 kilometers above sea level. At that altitude, there is noticeably less air, and reaching the top is incredibly difficult. And here is something interesting. The Himalayas are still growing. The tectonic plates beneath them continue to move, slowly but constantly. Some mountains gain a few millimeters each year. A tiny amount? Yes, but still impressive. The largest hot desert is the Sahara. It is so vast that its area rivals that of major countries. And yet, even there, life persists. Plants and animals have somehow adapted to the extreme conditions. Temperatures in a desert can change dramatically. Unbearable heat during the day, followed by near cold at night. Strangely enough, the coldest desert in the world is Antarctica. Many people find that surprising. But yes, some of its regions receive extremely little precipitation, and so it is classified as a desert too. Earth has valleys where rain almost never falls. There are places swept by relentless, powerful winds, and others where near total silence lasts for years. It must be a strange feeling. At high altitudes, people do not get enough oxygen, so travelers must acclimatize. Some lakes lie several kilometers above sea level, and their water often looks exceptionally clear. Some caves are so large that clouds can form inside them. A number have still been only partly explored. An entire world lies hidden beneath Earth's surface. Tunnels, underground halls, and immensely long passages. The largest known cave system extends for hundreds of kilometers. Glaciers move too, very slowly and almost imperceptibly. Yet that is enough to reshape the landscapes of entire regions over time. Some mountain lakes formed when ancient glaciers melted and have existed for thousands of years. And here is a detail that makes the scale of change difficult to grasp. Marine fossils have been found on the summits of the highest mountains. In other words, these places were once underwater. Nature is always changing. Even the mightiest mountains are gradually worn down by wind, water, and time. The process is simply too slow for us to notice, so mountains appear eternal, though of course they are not. Technologies that changed the world. Technology is everywhere around us today, so much so that we often stop noticing it altogether. If someone from the 18th century suddenly appeared beside us, they would probably believe they had entered a world of magic. The first telephone carried only the human voice. Today, a small device in your pocket lets you speak with people around the world, write messages, take pictures, search for information, and do almost anything else. The internet connects billions of people. Information crosses the planet in a fraction of a second. The first electronic computers filled entire rooms. A modern smartphone possesses computing power that once would have seemed impossible. Satellites help determine our precise location, contribute to weather forecasting, and provide communication between continents. Airplanes let us cross distances that once took months. Today, you can eat breakfast in one country and dinner in another. To us, this feels almost normal. Robots work in factories, laboratories, and even in space. Some explore other planets in place of human beings. Modern telescopes allow us to see galaxies at colossal distances from Earth. In essence, they give us a view into the universe's past. Medical technologies save millions of lives every year. Conditions once considered fatal can now often be treated successfully. Humans have created devices that exchange data with one another without any human involvement at all. We live in an age that would have seemed like pure science fiction only a century ago, and progress has not stopped. That is the most intriguing part. The technologies of the future will probably surprise even us. Then, someday, someone will look back at our devices and marvel at how simple they were. Unusual places on our planet, corners of Earth that look like other worlds. Sometimes you look at photographs of nature and cannot immediately believe they were taken on this planet. But they were. All of it is Earth. There are places where the water appears red, lakes in which it is almost impossible to sink, caves that look like sets from a science fiction film. One of the most unusual places is Lake Natron. Because of its distinctive chemical composition, the water sometimes turns reddish. In photographs, it looks almost unreal, as though someone overdid the editing. But the phenomenon is real. In South America lies Salar de Uyuni, the world's largest salt flat. After rain, its surface becomes a giant mirror. The boundary between earth and sky almost disappears. You walk as if you were moving directly across the clouds. In Iceland, you can see geysers, volcanoes, glaciers, and hot springs almost side by side. Such a combination is rare. In some areas, the ground itself seems to breathe warmth. Deep in the Namib Desert lies a place known as Deadvlei. Ancient trees that died many hundreds of years ago still stand there. The dry climate has left them almost unchanged. It is a very strange landscape, as though time simply stopped. In Turkey, there is Pamukkale, a series of snow-white mineral terraces that resemble frozen waterfalls or snowy slopes. In some of the world's caves, crystals grow as large as a person. They formed over tens of thousands of years. Some are so clear that they seem artificial. Australia is home to the pink Lake Hillier. Its water is bright pink. Scientists connect the color both to microorganisms and to the chemistry of the water itself. Socotra is home to plants found nowhere else on Earth. Some resemble giant umbrellas, while others look like mushrooms from a fantasy world. No wonder the island is so often described as alien. Some regions of Chile's deserts bear an eerie resemblance to Mars, so much so that space technology is tested there. They are, in effect, proving grounds for future exploration of other planets. Yes, glowing beaches really do exist on Earth. At night, the waves begin to shimmer blue, lit by microscopic organisms in the water. There are also places known as stone forests. They are actually ancient geological formations millions of years old, but they look as if an entire forest has simply turned to stone. China has a region of rainbow-colored mountains. Minerals have painted the slopes red, yellow, orange, and green. Looking at them feels as though someone swept a brush across an entire mountain range. And then there are ice caves, especially in winter. Light passes through the ice, filling the interior with shades of blue that make it look more like a gemstone than an ordinary cave. The planet knows how to surprise us, and honestly, plenty of places are still far less explored than we imagine. Perhaps we simply have not yet found the strangest and most beautiful of them. Facts that sound invented but are completely true. Reality can genuinely be stranger than fiction. Some things first seem like mistakes or practical jokes. Then you discover that no, they really are true. Bananas are slightly radioactive because of their natural potassium, but there is no need to worry. The level of radiation is minuscule. There is snow on Venus. It is not made of water, however, but of metal. Some lakes can literally explode. The cause is gas that accumulates in their depths. It is rare, but it does happen. Some trees on Earth are older than many civilizations. A few began growing before the Egyptian pyramids were built. Honey hardly ever spoils. Archaeologists have found honey thousands of years old that was still fit to eat. There is a fungus on Earth that covers several square kilometers. It is one of the largest living organisms on the planet. Yes, a fungus. Some sharks live for several centuries. Individuals have been found that were born before the Industrial Revolution. There are underwater waterfalls on the ocean floor. Not waterfalls in the usual sense, of course. Water falls between layers of different densities, but that is exactly how they appear. Giant clouds of alcohol exist in space, some larger than the entire solar system. Diamonds are not found only on Earth. Scientists suspect that immense deposits may be hidden inside certain planets. Hot water can sometimes freeze faster than cold water. Science has known about this paradox for a long time, although debate about its causes continues. Some fish can survive outside water for several days, aided by moist skin and specialized breathing mechanisms. There are stones that seem to move on their own. In reality, they are shifted by ice, wind, and the nature of the ground. But for a long time, they remained a genuine mystery. A giant storm has been raging on Jupiter for hundreds of years. It is so vast that several Earths could fit inside it. Octopuses open jars, solve puzzles, and escape from mazes. Their intelligence sometimes surprises even the researchers who study them. Some deserts were once the beds of ancient seas, and yes, some of today's mountains once lay beneath the water too. The world is constantly changing, simply too slowly by human standards. New discoveries are made every day, and the more we learn about nature, the more questions appear behind them. Perhaps that is what makes it so exciting. The world's remarkable islands, small, separate universes in the middle of the ocean. When we hear the word island, we usually picture palm trees, white sand, and warm seas. It is the standard image. In reality, islands can be extraordinarily different. Some truly do resemble paradise. Others look like places where living would be nearly impossible. The largest island on Earth is Greenland. The irony is that it is almost entirely covered by ice. Its ice sheet stores a colossal reserve of fresh water. Some islands are home to only a handful of people. Others have larger populations than many countries. Islands are not as permanent as they seem. Underwater volcanoes sometimes raise new land directly from the ocean. But some of these islands do not last long. The waves simply erode them away. There are islands with no human inhabitants at all, only animals. Some hold vast bird colonies, others thousands of fur seals. Certain islands support species found nowhere else. Isolation does remarkable things, which is why biologists are so fascinated by island ecosystems. The Galapagos Islands, for example, helped scientists greatly in understanding the mechanisms of evolution. The observations made there were far from merely theoretical, you might say. Some islands are so remote that the nearest land lies thousands of kilometers away. It is strange even to imagine ocean in every direction and nothing else. Some islands have no permanent rivers at all. Their only fresh water comes from rain. Other islands consist almost entirely of coral. They were quite literally built by millions of tiny organisms. Coral reefs, by the way, can even be seen from space. Limited space often creates very unusual island ecosystems. Some animals become smaller, while others grow into giants. There are tiny islands with room for just one house, yet even such a small patch of land has a story of its own. In many cultures, islands were regarded as mysterious places, not simply pieces of land in the water, but worlds unto themselves, with their own rhythms and rules. Perhaps that is why they appear so often in myths and legends, mysteries of nature that still have no complete answer. However far science advances, nature remains full of things we do not entirely understand. Some have been studied for decades, others for centuries. We still do not fully understand how birds follow their routes so precisely during migration. They cross oceans and continents, then return to the same places every year. Some animals appear to sense earthquakes in advance. This has been observed more than once, but exactly how it works remains an open question. Then there are mysterious wandering lights, seen in many different countries. Some cases have been explained scientifically. Others still carry a question mark. Giant rogue waves sometimes rise from the ocean. They appear suddenly and grow to tremendous heights. For a long time, sailors' stories about them were dismissed as tall tales. Then instruments confirmed that the stories were true. Some plants seem to anticipate a change in the weather. Before rain, they alter the position of their leaves. A small thing, but it can look almost mystical. In various places, people have found rocks that ring like metal bells when struck. Some have been explained, others are still being studied. There are singing sands as well. A strange humming sound suddenly rises in the desert, produced by grains of sand vibrating. The sound can travel a long way, and the effect is powerful, to say the least. Scientists connect it with the structure of the sand, but that does not make the phenomenon any less strange. Some forests create their own microclimates. The temperature inside can be noticeably different from the surrounding air. Enormous lakes lie hidden underground. Some were discovered only recently. Entire aquatic worlds remained beneath our feet for ages, completely unknown. Even in the 21st century, the planet continues to keep secrets. And perhaps the most interesting ones are not behind us, but ahead. The great travelers of the past. Today, we can open a map of any place in the world within seconds. One click, and everything is before our eyes. In the past, of course, things were very different. For most of history, people knew almost nothing about distant lands. Many set out without truly understanding what lay ahead. They simply walked, or sailed. Ancient seafarers navigated by the stars. The night sky was both their map and their compass. Polynesians crossed thousands of kilometers of ocean in small boats, long before reliable navigational instruments existed. When you think about it, That sounds almost unbelievable. Some explorers spent years at sea. Storms, shortages of food, uncertainty, and dangers no one could warn them about in advance were simply part of life. Old maps often contained blank spaces, not because someone forgot to finish them, but because people genuinely did not know what lay beyond the horizon. Sometimes they drew sea monsters in those regions, an honest way of saying, beyond this point lies the unknown. The first voyages around the world radically changed people's ideas about the planet. It proved much larger than many had imagined. Some islands were discovered entirely by accident, when storms carried ships far from familiar routes. And yes, in the past, even a short sea voyage could be a serious ordeal. Distances seem small today only because technology has made travel simpler and faster. But the desire to look beyond the horizon has never disappeared. Perhaps it was precisely this longing that helped humanity explore almost the entire planet. Almost. Because even today we cannot call Earth completely explored. Remarkable facts about time. Time seems perfectly ordinary, so ordinary that we rarely notice what a strange thing it really is. Everyone experiences it differently. Sometimes an hour passes in an instant. At other times, 5 minutes stretch out as though someone were deliberately making them longer. There are places on Earth where the summer sun barely dips below the horizon. In winter, night can last for weeks. That alone disrupts our familiar sense of a day. New Year's Eve works the same way. One country has already entered the new year, while people elsewhere are still living in the old one. It is amusing. The same moment exists across the planet, yet according to the calendar, the times are different. A second seems insignificant, yet within a single second, countless things happen on Earth. Babies are born, raindrops fall, and flowers unfold. Light from the moon reaches Earth in a little over a second. From the sun, it takes around 8 minutes. The light of some stars travels toward us for hundreds or thousands of years. So when we look at the sky, we are literally seeing the universe's past. People once measured time by the sun and stars. Then came sundials, followed by mechanical clocks. Today, atomic clocks achieve an accuracy that is difficult to imagine. Some lose less than a second over millions of years. As people grow older, many feel that time is speeding up. Scientists connect this sensation with perception and accumulated experience. Perhaps the brain simply assembles the pieces of life differently. And perhaps this is the strangest thing of all. Every moment immediately becomes the past. The whole history of humanity is built from moments just like these. Amazing facts about food are really the story of what arrives on our tables every day. Food has accompanied human beings from the very beginning, but we are so accustomed to everyday ingredients that we seldom think about the journeys they have made. Things that seem ordinary today were once rare. Potatoes, for example, arrived in Europe relatively recently by historical standards. At first, people were actually afraid to eat them. Today, many cuisines would be difficult to imagine without them. Tomatoes had a similar story. For a long time, they were treated as ornamental plants, and some people believed they were poisonous. Fortunately, they were wrong. Chocolate was once very different too. The peoples of Central America prepared a bitter cocoa drink with spices, nothing like the familiar sweet bar. Honey is one of the oldest foods in the human diet. People gathered it even before agriculture began. Rice has fed vast civilizations for thousands of years and remains a staple for billions of people. Humans have cultivated apple trees for many centuries. In that time, thousands of varieties have appeared. Some fruits traveled around the world with sailors, while trade routes gradually carried plants between continents. That is why many familiar foods are now grown far from the places where they originated. Coffee was first consumed in East Africa. There is a legend about a shepherd who noticed how energetic his goats became after eating coffee berries. It is a lovely story and a wonderfully vivid one. Over time, tea became part of the culture of countless peoples. For millions of people, A morning without it is not quite morning at all. Salt was once so valuable that it served as a medium of exchange. Entire roads were built to transport it. That seems almost impossible today, but at the time, it was very serious business. Thousands of varieties of cheese exist around the world. Every region has its own recipes, customs, and flavors. Almost every national cuisine reflects the place where it arose, its climate, soil, available ingredients, trade, and the habits of its people. You can see all of it in the food. Some dishes have survived for centuries with almost no change. They outlast wars, shifting eras, and new technologies, while the recipe remains. There is something deeply human in that, perhaps. Today you can taste food from almost anywhere in the world. Just a few centuries ago, that would have seemed like fantasy. The history of food is not only about flavor, it is also about travel, exchange, survival, and the development of civilizations. And yes, that story is still being written. The ocean's most unusual animals. The ocean remains one of the most mysterious places on Earth. The deeper researchers descend, the stranger the creatures they discover. Sometimes you look at one and your first thought is, can this really be something other than science fiction? The blobfish became famous for its appearance, yet in its natural environment, it looks quite different. That familiar sagging shape appears only after it is brought to the surface. Anglerfish live in the complete darkness of the deep. A glowing appendage on the head is used to lure prey. Eerie, but effective. For a long time, giant squid were dismissed as sailors' tales. Now we know for certain that they are real, and some grow to immense sizes. Seahorses have their own unusual trait. The males carry the young. That is rare in the animal world. Some deep-sea fish have transparent skin through which their internal organs can be seen. Nature certainly knows how to surprise us with its solutions. Jellyfish have existed for hundreds of millions of years. They appeared before the dinosaurs and survived many global changes. That, honestly, is impressive too. Several kilometers below the surface, the pressure is so great that most land creatures could not survive. The local inhabitants manage perfectly well. For them, it is an ordinary environment. Some fish generate electrical impulses, which help them navigate and defend themselves. Starfish can regrow lost arms, and certain species can regenerate a substantial part of the body. Sperm whales dive more than 2 kilometers deep and hunt squid in complete darkness. Coral, by the way, may resemble plants or stones, but corals are actually animals. They build enormous reefs that can be seen even from space. Some octopuses change color in a fraction of a second, either for camouflage or communication. Not the most expected ability. Hot vents on the ocean floor support entire ecosystems. Life there exists without any sunlight at all. When these communities were discovered, scientists had to significantly reconsider what living organisms were capable of. And perhaps the most interesting thing is that new marine species are still discovered every year. So the ocean continues to guard its secrets, and it seems likely to keep them for a long time yet. Ancient cities that have survived for millennia. Cities are born, grow, and rebuild themselves. Sometimes they disappear, but some have stood for so long that their histories stretch back thousands of years. It is strange even to imagine that people walked these streets before most modern nations existed. Damascus is commonly named among the oldest continuously inhabited cities. People have lived in this region for many thousands of years, and every generation has left something behind. Jericho belongs on that rare list as well. Its history reaches very, very far into the past. In ancient times, cities were usually built beside rivers. Everything depended on water, life, trade, and agriculture. Indeed, many modern metropolises grew from settlements just like these. Streets were much narrower then. They were not designed for cars, but for people on foot, animals, and the bustle of ordinary city life. Some ancient walls have survived to the present day. If you think about it, they have witnessed countless human lives. Archaeologists continue to discover new things in old cities. Beneath modern houses lie traces of much earlier ages. Sometimes several historical layers rest beneath a single city, one on top of another. Ancient markets were the true heart of a city. Traders, craftspeople, and travelers gathered there. These places spread not only goods, but also ideas, skills, and knowledge. Some old roads, by the way, are still in use. People continue to follow routes that are thousands of years old. Ancient cities were often enclosed by walls for protection against attack. Nothing more elaborate than that. Today, those walls remind us how old everything is, and how close the past remains, even when it seems distant. The history of ancient cities reveals something important. Generations are connected far more closely than we usually imagine. We live in the same places where others lived long before us. In a sense, we are simply continuing their story. Earth's incredible natural records. Our planet holds plenty of records of its own, and some of them seem almost unreal. The world's tallest waterfall is Angel Falls. Water plunges nearly a kilometer, and part of the flow turns to mist before it ever reaches the ground. The Nile is usually called the world's longest river, although scientists still debate the subject. What is certain is that it flows through several countries. The deepest lake on Earth is Lake Baikal. It contains immense reserves of fresh water, and some of its inhabitants are found nowhere else. The Amazon rainforest remains the largest tropical forest on Earth. It influences the climate of the entire planet and contributes a colossal amount of oxygen through its plant life. The largest icebergs can be as big as small countries. They drift slowly across the ocean for years, calmly and almost lazily. The largest living tree by volume grows in California. It is thousands of years old. Some deserts are so vast that crossing them on foot is nearly impossible. The most powerful earthquakes can shift sections of Earth's crust by several meters. The planet is still alive. It is still changing. The greatest volcanic eruptions of the past affected Earth's entire climate. Ash rose high into the atmosphere and changed the amount of sunlight reaching the surface. In some places, rain falls almost every day. In others, years pass without it. Those are the contrasts of Earth. Perhaps incredible variety is one of our planet's defining traits. Every natural record is another reminder of how vast the world around us is, and of how truly astonishing it remains. Amazing facts about sleep and dreams. Since we are speaking in such a peaceful, almost nighttime mood, it feels natural to turn to sleep, something entirely familiar, yet still not completely understood. Every night, billions of people close their eyes and enter the world of dreams. Sleep remains one of the body's most mysterious functions. A person spends roughly 1/3 of life asleep. If you live to 90, around 30 of those years will pass in sleep. That is a remarkable number, honestly. The brain does not switch off while we sleep. Quite the opposite. Some regions become highly active. While the body rests, the brain works through memories, sorts impressions, and processes what has accumulated during the day. Sleep is believed to play an important role in learning. That is why new information is often easier to remember after a good rest. Almost everyone dreams, even when it seems in the morning that nothing happened at all. Usually, we have simply forgotten what we saw. Some people can recognize that they are dreaming. This is known as lucid dreaming. Time feels strange in a dream. A few minutes may seem like a long journey. The brain can create astonishingly realistic scenes, sometimes almost indistinguishable from genuine memories. There are cases in which ideas or discoveries came to people in their dreams. Scientists, artists, and writers have often described such experiences. Babies sleep much more than adults, most likely because the brain develops so rapidly during that stage of life. During sleep, the muscles relax, body temperature drops slightly, breathing becomes more regular, and the heart works more calmly. The body restores itself, quietly and without fuss. Animals are especially remarkable when it comes to sleep. Some sleep standing up, others sleep afloat. Certain animals can rest one half of the brain at a time. Dolphins, for example, must do this because they need to remain in control of their breathing. And still, many questions about sleep remain. The more scientists discover, the more new mysteries seem to appear. Sleep remains one of the most beautiful and enigmatic parts of our lives. Inventions that changed human history. There are things we have grown so accustomed to that we barely notice them anymore, yet once they simply did not exist. The wheel is one of the key inventions in human history. It appeared thousands of years ago, and the development of transportation is difficult to imagine without it. Writing gave people the ability to preserve knowledge. Before it appeared, information was passed down mainly through speech, which meant that much of it was lost. Paper made it far easier to spread ideas. Books became more accessible, and knowledge began to pass from one generation to the next and travel between countries. The compass was a tremendous help to sailors. It made exploring new lands safer. The printing press transformed many things. Books became widely available, and information ceased to belong only to a very small circle of people. Mechanical clocks changed our relationship with time itself. People learned to measure it far more precisely. The arrival of the steam engine began a new era. Production and transportation suddenly became much faster. Electricity transformed human life almost completely. Light, communication, computers. Everyday life is now unimaginable without them. The telephone allowed people to speak across distances. Before it existed, a single message might take weeks to arrive. The airplane made the planet seem smaller. Journeys that once felt unimaginably distant became ordinary routes. Then came computers, and an entirely new age began. They changed work, education, domestic life, and nearly everything else. The internet connected billions of people. For the first time, knowledge became available almost instantly. And almost every major invention began with a fairly simple thought. Could this be made more convenient, simpler, faster? After that, the whole world changed. The most unusual animals on land. Land is home to an enormous number of strange and remarkable creatures. Sometimes you look at one and think, surely that cannot be real. The platypus belongs squarely in that category. It has a bill like a duck's, a tail resembling a beaver's, and feet that look almost like an otter's. No wonder the first European scientists believed it was someone's practical joke. Armadillos wear genuine, natural armor. It protects them from predators, and some species curl into an almost perfect ball when threatened. Meerkats live in large families. While some search for food, others stand guard and watch the surrounding area. It is a highly coordinated system. Anteaters tear open termite mounds with long claws, then gather food with their long, sticky tongues. Yet they have almost no teeth. The capybara is the largest living rodent. Despite its size, it is quite calm and can often be seen peacefully beside other animals. Wombats build complex underground burrows and are perfectly at home below the surface. Lemurs live only in Madagascar. Many of their species are found nowhere else. Pangolins are covered in large scales and roll into a tight ball when threatened. The fennec is a small desert fox with enormous ears. Those ears are not merely decorative, they help cool its body in the heat. Mountain goats can move across almost vertical cliffs. From a distance, it looks completely impossible. And perhaps this is the most interesting part. Many animals are perfectly adapted to conditions that would seem entirely uninhabitable to a human being. Nature, as usual, surprises us again. Mysterious places on Earth. There are places on our planet that have gathered legends for decades or even centuries. Some have been explained, but many continue to fascinate researchers and curious people alike. One of the most famous archaeological sites is Stonehenge. Its giant stones were erected thousands of years ago, and debate about their exact purpose continues to this day. In Peru lie the Nazca Lines. They are so vast that they can only truly be seen from the air. Some figures extend for hundreds of meters. The famous stone statues stand on Easter Island. It is difficult even to imagine how much effort the island's ancient inhabitants needed to create and move them. There are underground cities, too, in several different countries. Some may have sheltered thousands of people. The remains of ancient settlements are still being found in jungles. Nature works quietly but persistently, hiding them beneath the greenery little by little. Some caves are covered in paintings tens of thousands of years old. When you see them, the past no longer feels quite so distant. There are places on Earth where compasses behave strangely. Magnetic rocks are usually the cause. But to travelers of the past, it must have seemed almost like magic. History holds many mysteries. That is why archaeologists keep digging, searching, comparing, and debating. And they do not stop. A few more peaceful facts before sleep. There are more trees in the world than stars visible from Earth with the naked eye. Every snowflake begins with a tiny crystal of ice. Some lakes are so clear that the bottom can be seen dozens of meters below. The most ancient living organisms on the planet appeared long before the dinosaurs. New islands are sometimes born quite literally from volcanic eruptions. The moon moves a little farther from Earth each day. Only a tiny amount, but it is moving nonetheless. The oceans hold almost all the water on the planet. Even the quietest forest is not truly silent. Its life simply continues without much noise. Billions of roots, fungi, and microorganisms are constantly at work beneath the ground. Some trees can even exchange nutrients through fungal networks. It sounds strange, but yes, it is true. Auroras can be seen even from space. Light from the most distant galaxies travels toward us for billions of years. Mountains that seem eternal are slowly changing shape. Rocks change too, just so slowly that we can barely notice. Nature never stands still. Never. Sometimes everything changes quickly. Sometimes it happens so slowly that the difference becomes visible only after thousands of years. And now, you can simply breathe out and let these stories dissolve into the quiet of the night. Facts about space and the universe. A journey among the stars. Far from city lights, you can look up and see thousands of stars, but that is only a tiny fragment of the universe. Most of it is hidden from us simply because it is too far away. Every star we notice at night lies at an immense distance. Even light needs time to reach us. The nearest star to Earth beyond the Sun is Proxima Centauri. Its light takes more than 4 years to reach us. The Sun looks enormous, and it truly is. Yet by cosmic standards, it is a fairly ordinary star. Some stars are tens or even hundreds of times larger. A few shine so brightly that they emit more energy than millions of suns combined. Yet to us, they still appear as simple points of light. Earth races around the Sun at about 100,000 kilometers per hour, and we do not feel it at all. The solar system is moving too. Together with the Sun, it travels around the center of the galaxy. One complete orbit takes roughly 230 million years. When dinosaurs walked the Earth, our solar system was in an entirely different part of the Milky Way. A strange thought. The moon looks large in our sky, although it is actually around 400 times smaller than the Sun. By a fortunate coincidence of distance, this allows us to witness solar eclipses. The moon has almost no atmosphere, which means sound cannot travel there in the familiar way. There is complete silence. A rock might fall, but you would hear nothing. Mars has the longest canyons in the solar system. Some are so vast that they could span entire continents on Earth. Martian sunsets are bluish, unlike ours. A giant storm has raged on Jupiter for several hundred years. It is called the Great Red Spot. Several Earths could fit inside it. Saturn is famous for its rings, but other planets have rings too. Saturn's are simply the most visible. Sometimes moons are more interesting than the planets they orbit. Beneath the icy surface of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, there is probably a vast ocean. It is one of the most intriguing places to search for extraterrestrial life. Eruptions occur constantly on Io. It is the most volcanically active world in the solar system. Venus is hot enough to melt lead. It is not a welcoming place, to put it mildly. Uranus rotates as though it were lying on its side. Exactly why this happened is still not entirely clear. Some comets have wandered through the solar system for thousands of years. They return again and again, almost like cosmic travelers. A comet's tail always points away from the sun, blown outward by the solar wind. Asteroids vary tremendously. Some are smaller than a house, while others measure hundreds of kilometers across. Most lie between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter in the asteroid belt. Thousands of small meteors enter Earth's atmosphere every day. Almost all of them burn up high in the sky. A shooting star is not a star at all. It is a small object from space that glows hot as it enters the atmosphere. There are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth, and even that sentence does not truly convey the scale. Galaxies sometimes collide with one another, yet their individual stars almost never crash because the distances between them are simply too vast. Our galaxy is also moving toward another large galaxy. Billions of years from now, the two will begin to merge. Supernovae are among the brightest events in the universe. During such an explosion, a star may briefly shine brighter than an entire galaxy. And yes, many chemical elements were created inside ancient stars. The iron in our blood and the calcium in our bones were once born there, deep within stellar interiors. When you think about it, every person is literally made of star matter. That makes the night sky feel a little closer, and a little more like home. Cosmic distances that are difficult to comprehend. Imagine getting into a car and deciding to drive to the sun. Traveling non-stop at 100 kilometers per hour, the journey would take more than 170 years. Light crosses that same distance in only 8 minutes. In a single second, light can circle Earth 7 times. The speed is almost absurd, yet even that is not enough when we are talking about the universe. If the sun suddenly disappeared, Earth would not know for 8 minutes. That is how long its light takes to reach us. The nearest large galaxy is so distant that its light began traveling toward Earth before humanity even existed. Some objects, now seen through telescopes, are billions of light years away. We see them as they were billions of years in the past. In a sense, telescopes are time machines. The farther you look, the more distant the past you see. Scientists estimate that the observable universe contains hundreds of billions of galaxies. Each holds millions or billions of stars. When you try to imagine it, the mind begins to surrender a little. And that is perfectly normal. Space is simply too vast. But perhaps that is precisely what makes it so captivating. And while distant galaxies drift slowly through space, we can quietly continue our journey. Black holes, galaxies, and distant worlds. If we travel farther, much farther, into distances measured in millions of light years, our familiar picture of reality begins to break apart. Things work a little differently there, sometimes completely differently. Black holes are among the strangest objects in the universe. They can form after the death of very massive stars. When such a star exhausts its fuel, its own gravity compresses the matter more and more until a region of space forms with an immense gravitational pull. There is a boundary beyond which no return is possible. It is called the event horizon. Once something crosses it, that is the end. Even light cannot escape. That is why black holes appear completely black. The image of a cosmic vacuum cleaner is not quite accurate. If the sun were suddenly replaced by a black hole of equal mass, Earth would continue along the same orbit. Without light and heat, of course, life would quickly end. But the orbit itself would barely change. Supermassive black holes sit at the centers of most known galaxies. Some are millions or even billions of times more massive than the Sun. One lies at the center of the Milky Way, too, Sagittarius A star. The name sounds ominous, but it poses no danger to Earth. It is far too distant. In 2019, humanity obtained the first image of a black hole, a picture that only recently would have seemed almost impossible. To create it, radio telescopes across Earth had to be linked into one enormous network. And that is not all. Some black holes produce powerful jets of energy that extend for thousands of light years. They can be seen from colossal distances. Galaxies come in many forms: spiral, elliptical, and irregular. Ours is a spiral galaxy. Seen from outside, the Milky Way would resemble an enormous glowing whirlpool containing hundreds of billions of stars. Yet, despite all this, our galaxy is not unique. It is simply one among many. Some galaxies contain several trillion stars. Others are much more modest. When galaxies draw close, a long process of interaction begins, sometimes lasting millions of years. From the outside, it resembles a dance, a very slow dance that seems almost motionless. Vast clouds of gas and dust drift within galaxies. New stars are born there, which is why these regions are called stellar nurseries. In telescope images, they can look completely unreal. Nebulae readily deceive the eye. We want to see faces, animals, and figures within them. In reality, they are giant concentrations of matter. Some are so vast that light takes years to cross them. When a new star forms, a disk of gas and dust gradually gathers around it. Planets may later emerge from that material. This is how our solar system once appeared. Similar processes seem to occur throughout the universe, which means there are very many worlds. Thousands of exoplanets, planets outside our solar system, have already been discovered. Some are larger than Jupiter. Others resemble Earth. Some orbit 2 stars at once. Imagining 2 sunsets one after another is strange in itself. There are worlds where a year lasts only a few Earth days. Elsewhere, one orbit around a star takes hundreds of years. Some exoplanets are so hot that they literally glow. Others are immersed in eternal darkness. Certain worlds may have oceans hundreds of kilometers deep, unlike anything Earth has ever known. There are wandering planets too, worlds with no star of their own, traveling alone through space. Exactly how they came to be this way is unclear. Perhaps they were once thrown out of their home systems. Stars have very different lifespans. Some live only a few million years, almost an instant by cosmic standards. Others continue for tens of billions of years. Red dwarfs are considered the champions of longevity. Many will still be shining long after the sun has gone dark. Astronomers sometimes find entire stellar graveyards, regions containing the remains of dead stars. Such places are always stories about the past, the very distant past. Neutron stars are another story altogether. Their density is almost unimaginable. A tiny piece of their matter would weigh millions of tons. Some rotate hundreds of times per second and emit regular pulses of radiation. These are pulsars. When they were first discovered, people even wondered whether the signals might be artificial. Eventually, we learned the truth. Nature is perfectly capable of astonishing us without any help. The universe itself does not stand still. It is expanding, and galaxies are gradually moving away from one another. This is one of science's key discoveries, yet it has created more questions rather than fewer. We still do not know exactly what drives the expansion. The term dark energy was introduced to explain it. Dark matter presents a similar mystery. Calculations suggest that there is more of it in the universe than ordinary matter, but we have not observed it directly. It is a strange thought. Most of the universe appears to consist of something we cannot see directly, and yet this invisible something affects the movement of galaxies. Every new telescope brings answers, immediately followed by a new collection of questions. The farther we look into space, the stronger the feeling becomes that it is larger, more complex, and more astonishing than we are comfortable imagining. And perhaps, somewhere among this endless number of stars, there are worlds where someone else is looking up and thinking much the same thing. Now let us return to human history. The scale is different, but the sense of wonder remains. Human history is very long. If we imagined it as a book, our modern age would occupy only the final few pages. Everything else would describe a completely different life, without cities, without nations, without writing. For a very long time, people lived in small groups and depended on nature much more than we do today. The first humans appeared hundreds of thousands of years ago. For an enormous part of history, they relied on simple stone tools, primitive by our standards perhaps, but a decisive advantage for survival. Fire changed everything. It provided warmth, light, and protection, and it allowed people to cook food. One theory suggests that cooked food significantly encouraged the development of the human brain. Artists existed long before cities. People painted animals on cave walls, and some of those images are tens of thousands of years old. When archaeologists find them, a strange feeling arises, as though the distance between us and those people has suddenly grown a little smaller. For most of its existence, humanity lived a nomadic life. People followed animals, the seasons, and every opportunity to survive. Gradually, however, the first settlements began to appear. That was the beginning of a new age. When people adopted agriculture, life changed dramatically. Food could be grown near home instead of searched for endlessly. Settlements expanded, and the first cities eventually emerged. Of course, they looked nothing like modern metropolises. They had narrow streets and houses made of clay, stone, and wood. But it was there that crafts, trade, and science truly began to develop. Communities produced more food than a single family needed, and some people gradually became free to do things other than find food. Some built, some made tools, others traded. In this way, little by little, civilizations took shape. Writing was one of the great breakthroughs. For the first time, knowledge did not have to be remembered alone. It could be preserved for children, grandchildren, and those who came later. Books, documents, and chronicles appeared. That is why we are able to know anything at all about events that happened thousands of years ago. Human beings have watched the sky carefully, almost stubbornly, since ancient times. They followed the sun, moon, and stars. This is how the first calendars appeared. Some ancient structures still astonish us with their precision. They are aligned with celestial objects so exactly that you cannot help but wonder. Simply living beside the world has never been enough for humanity. We have always wanted to understand it too. This desire gave rise to the first philosophers and scientists, and to questions about nature, time, and humanity's place in the universe. Some of those questions, honestly, still have no final answer. Travel in the ancient world was difficult and dangerous. Even a journey to a neighboring region might take weeks. Still, people walked, rode, and sailed. Curiosity always won. Trade routes connected distant lands, carrying ideas, knowledge, and technology, along with goods. Cultures influenced one another. The wheel, metallurgy, and writing spread across the world and changed millions of lives. Some ancient libraries held thousands of manuscripts. They were true treasure houses. Scholars collected knowledge about plants, animals, and stars, and many of their observations proved remarkably accurate. Then, large states appeared. They built roads, cities, and complex systems of government. Some endured for centuries. History is full of journeys. People crossed deserts, mountains, and oceans. Sometimes they found new lands, sometimes new trade routes, and sometimes they went looking for one thing and unexpectedly discovered something entirely different. It happened constantly. Perhaps this is one of history's most vivid qualities. It rarely travels in a straight line. Knowledge accumulated slowly, generation after generation. Everyone added something of their own. That is why the world is what it is today. Yet when you think about it, not that many generations separate us from the earliest humans. Fewer than it seems. Human history is immense, but it is always made from individual stories, from people like us who loved, made mistakes, hoped, made plans, and dreamed. Great libraries and lost knowledge. For thousands of years, people have tried to preserve what they learned. They recorded stories, observations, and discoveries. That is how the first libraries appeared. In those days, a book was almost unbelievably rare. Every manuscript was created by hand. One volume might take months, sometimes years. It is easy to understand why books were valued so highly. Some libraries collected texts from across the known world. Manuscripts arrived from distant lands. Scholars studied them, debated them, and wrote new works. Much of what we know reached us only because someone, somewhere, once preserved it. But an enormous amount of knowledge disappeared through fires, wars, and the passage of time. Historians themselves say that we know only a small fraction of what was written. Every discovered manuscript is almost a conversation with the past. Sometimes archaeologists find texts that were believed to be lost forever. Scribes deserve a story of their own. Generation after generation, these people copied books by hand. It was a monumental task. Without them, countless works would never have survived the centuries. Today, everything is different. Millions of books fit into digital archives, and information is vastly easier to access. But the underlying idea has not changed. We still want to preserve knowledge and keep it from being lost. The history of libraries is, in essence, the history of human memory. Amazing facts about cities. More than half of Earth's population now lives in cities. For most of history, the opposite was true. People lived mainly in villages and small settlements. Megacities are relatively new by historical standards. Some cities never sleep. Even at night, traffic moves, transportation runs, and windows glow. Life continues. Another world often lies hidden beneath a city: subway tunnels, utility rooms, and communication lines, entire networks that we barely ever see. Some cities have histories stretching back thousands of years, others appeared only recently. But every city has a character of its own. Architecture reveals this especially clearly. Buildings tell us a great deal about a region's culture, habits, and past. Skyscrapers as we know them appeared only within the last century or so. Before that, cities looked entirely different: lower, denser, and closer to the ground. Technology allowed buildings to reach upward with ever greater confidence. Some cities can be seen from space by their lights at night. Images like these make the scale of human activity suddenly clear. And still, cities leave room for nature: parks, trees, birds, and quiet corners among the noise and concrete. That matters too. Cities change every day. New buildings rise, streets open, and old things disappear. Yet the past never vanishes completely. Sometimes an old house stands beside a glass tower, and there is something very honest about that. History does not leave. It simply lives beside us. And now our long journey is drawing to a close. Today we descended into the ocean depths and traveled in our minds to distant stars. We stood beside ancient civilizations, remembered unusual animals, and looked at extraordinary places on Earth. And perhaps once again, we felt what a strange, immense, and beautiful world surrounds us. While this story unfolded, Earth completed another small part of its rotation. Somewhere, the moon has already risen. Somewhere, rain is falling. Somewhere in the ocean, a whale is swimming at this very moment. And somewhere, perhaps, a person is looking at the stars for the first time and asking the same questions humanity has asked for thousands of years. The world is enormous, yet deeply connected. You can simply let your thoughts go. There is no need to hurry. Nothing needs to be decided right now. Let these stories and facts gradually dissolve into the quiet of the night. Let your breathing become steady, and let sleep arrive softly, almost unnoticed. Thank you for sharing this journey. Good night. Until we meet again here in the Sleep Zone.